Hey, Jason Wood here, the VA Loan Guy, bringing you another episode of the Armed and Ready podcast. We have an awesome guest today, Melanie Burkholder, running for state assembly and a former Secret Service agent. You got to check this one out. Hey, thanks for joining us on another episode of the Armed and Ready podcast. Our guest today is Melanie Burkholder. She's a former Secret Service agent and running for state assembly.
Yeah.
Melanie, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
It's completely my pleasure to be here. I'm very excited about this. I love the title of the show. It, brought me in right away.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, for our guests, I think your background is especially unique because you served in the Secret Service, which is kind of a secret. I mean, people don't know a lot about the Secret Service, right? It's kind of it's an arm of law enforcement,
Sure.
but you think of it like movies and stuff and protecting the president, but there's more to it than that, right?
Yeah.
And for those that don't know, maybe a little history, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but Secret Service was originally part of the Department of the Treasury, right? It happened like back in the 1800s to
1856.
Yeah, to prevent or to go after counterfeit money.
Yeah, and there was actually different currency around, and you couldn't compare. Like, can I take money from Idaho and use it in Wyoming, or so there was a lot of counterfeit, and that was part of what we did. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. And then fast forward, it's now part of Department of Homeland Security.
Correct. After 9/11, that's when it kind of went into Department of Homeland Security.
That's really cool. So tell us a little bit about Secret, like what inspired you to get into law enforcement or the Secret Service, and tell us about like that path and getting into it, because I think to me it's super interesting, right? Like you got Secret Service, CIA, and FBI, like all these like cool law enforcement arms, and I think for most people it's just kind of what you see on the movies or TV, right, about it. But like how do you get involved in that? Like how do you get down that track? Like, hey, I want to be one of those kind of people. How do you get there?
Well, I'll tell you this. I never grew up saying I can't wait to be Secret Service agent. And I learned when I got into it that people did. That was something that, 5-year-olds would say, when I grow up, I'm going to be a Secret Service agent. And they did, their lives led them in that path, right? Great, mad respect for folks like that. But I was originally, like I am now, a mental health therapist. And I'm a recovering marathon runner. I don't know what got in my crazy head that made me think I needed to run marathons. But anyway, I had a training group, so the folks that you run with, and you're on miserably long 4-hour training runs, and you're talking about everything in the world. And I was complaining about my job because I was making less money as a therapist than I made as a bartender, working my way through college, so it didn't make very much sense to me. And so I ran with an AUSA. Okay, they prosecute federal crimes. And another guy was a chief of police, and I'm from Memphis originally, Tennessee. And so as I'm complaining, they're thinking to themselves, why don't you go down to the Secret Service and talk to the special agent in charge, the SAC, and see if maybe that would be a good fit, because I love to travel. I've traveled like a lot and all over the world. And I was single at the time. And I was like, well, that sounds like a good idea. Never really thought about it too much. But when I went there, I had a master's degree at the time. And being female, there were only about 700 female agents when I was hired, and 2,400 total agents.
Oh, wow.
So it was a good fit for them. And so they basically recruited me for the next year, because in the government's infinite wisdom, it does this thing called a hiring freeze, and so they were on a hiring freeze when
perfect.
But when they do the background check, part of the background is to go to every place that you've ever lived, and they interview your neighbors, and they talk to your employers. Did she smoke weed? Was she drunk on the, whatever, like, it's very intense background. And I have a funny story. So I basically worked 3 jobs to put myself through college, right? One of my jobs was opening up the gym at like 5:30 in the morning, right? I would go to the local gym and open up. And at 8 o'clock one morning, I get this phone call, and it's from the Secret Service. And they're calling about my background check, because part of that is your credit check. And they said to me, you have something called an I-9 on your credit report. I have no idea what that is. To this day, I don't know what it is, but it's bad. And I said, "What? I don't even know what you're talking about." Well, apparently I owed a doctor $35. And I thought, okay, so $35 is going to prevent me from working for the United States Secret Service. Okay, so let's just talk about this. So I said, let me do some research and I'll, get back with you. So I started finding out this doctor, I had paid them 3 times. They ended up cutting me a check for $75 because I had overpaid them or whatever. I was like, you can't make this up. I mean, this is the most ironic thing. I never would have known that they had owed me money, but they sure did. And somehow they screwed up and got my credit involved in all of it. But anyway, so that's it. They do a really thorough background check. The other thing they laughed at me about was, why did you move so much? I was like, I don't know. I just moved a lot. My mom said she moved when her place got dirty.
Oh.
Not true. But I did move a lot, and they have to go to all of those people, and it's very intense. Obviously you have to have a polygraph examination, which is
Oh,
commonly
wow.
known as a lie detector exam, and that's one of those fun things where they're like, "Have you ever lied to your parents?" And I, being a mental health therapist, I know this game, okay? And I'm like, well, of course I have. I was a teenager. Have you? Well, if you've lied to your parents, how are we going to know that you're not going to lie to the United States Secret Service? Or, have you ever stolen anything? Yes, when I was 5, I took a piece of bubble gum and my mom found it and I had to go take it back to the store. Well, if you stole a piece of gum when you were 5, then how do we know you're not going to steal from the United States Secret Service? So it's kind of that game that they do, and
Yeah. Like,
but
well,
it's
I'm not
intense.
5 anymore.
Yeah,
I'm not a teenager either. So I'm not
exactly.
having to sneak out anymore.
Or yeah, or have you ever you've never taken sticky notes from your work? I mean, it's really intense. I shouldn't laugh about it because people do fail it, but yeah. And then obviously your physical, you have to do the same like in the Marines and in the military, we have to do that: sit-ups, push-ups, pull-ups, and run. And I got so tickled in training. I was elected the president of my class, which is quite an honor. But we had to do pull-ups. And there were some guys that could not do pull-ups. And I'm thinking, why am I doing 20 pull-ups and you can't do one? Like, what is wrong in this with this picture right now? It was just, oh, just those are the kind of things that are so frustrating. Because to me, if you have a standard, then you need to be able to meet the standard, right?
Right.
It's not just a suggestion.
Yeah.
So,
Well, they didn't
yeah,
happen to stumble across getting into training at the Secret Service. Like, obviously there was time and a plan, and
actually,
they
yeah,
could have gotten into shape, right?
yeah, exactly. And yeah, it's really inexcusable, I think. So if you can't run a mile and whatever. Anyway, I think it was like literally like 12 minutes. And I'm thinking, you got to run a mile and a half in 12 minutes. If you can't do that, how are you going to chase down someone that's, a
Yeah.
bad guy? So that kind of gives a segue, I guess. So you go through training. It's about 6 months long, 2 different training facilities. You become an agent. You're awarded your gun and badge and your vest and all of your equipment. You go off, and I was in the LA field office. And so if you think about the movie To Live and Die in LA, and I was assigned to the counterfeit squad, which is just so fun. I think a lot of people don't know what we do as agents is not only protect presidents, vice presidents, their families, foreign dignitaries, and things like that, but people like that. But we also investigate financial crimes because going back to the beginning of our conversation, we still do that. We do counterfeit, money laundering, electronic crimes, fraud, bank fraud, and we have a whole arm of just threats against the president called protective intelligence.
Oh,
So
wow.
while we're not on a protective detail, which means you move to Washington, D.C., and you follow a specific person, we're investigating in the field offices while we're doing our protective mission. So you can imagine during a campaign year, it's hectic, it's crazy, it's
Oh, yeah.
insane. You don't get a lot of investigations done. If I were a bad guy, that's probably when I'd want to start printing money during a campaign year.
Right.
But yeah, so it's just really busy. I think one campaign season, it might have been the one that you worked on. I spent 9 nights in my own bed from like September of one year to like August of the next year or something like that. I mean,
Wow.
it
That's a
was,
crazy amount of travel.
and you're going across the United States. You're just, I would wake up and not even know where I was. I'm like, wait, where am I now? So it is crazy amounts of travel, but it's really it was really quite an honor to have been able to serve my country in that way. I had the privilege of protecting Jimmy Carter, every president from Carter to Bush, actually,
Oh,
in
wow.
some way, fashion, or form, many foreign dignitaries. And you really do get a personal sense of who the people are and how they are and what they're like and a bit of their personalities, So that's kind of a unique opportunity that this job has.
Yeah.
And on also, good lord, I'm not a starstruck type person, and I don't know very many actors and actresses because I don't watch a lot of TV. And if I watch a movie, I just like enjoy it and forget about
Right.
it. So the Clintons were really big into the Hollywood scene, and so we went to lots of different events, protecting them and. Sharon Stone, Barbara Streisand, like, all these people would just be walking around the room, and it was
That's
really
pretty
quite
incredible.
weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was because they don't. That doesn't mean a whole lot to me, but it does to some other people.
Yeah.
Some of the other agents that were more into that kind of stuff. One of my girlfriends was a key grip at one point in time, and she became an agent, and so she knew all of those people. Because she was in that business. So
That's really fun.
yeah, it is fun stories.
Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned the campaign. So I worked on a presidential campaign in '04 for Bush's reelection. And just like learning about the personalities. Because, right, like the general public just sees what you see on TV,
Right.
right? Which may or may not really reflect their true nature, like how they are off the camera, right?
Yeah.
And I just remember he's well, a lot shorter than I imagined he would be. He's not a very tall guy, but pretty spunky dude.
Yeah.
Like, he just has a lot of character, a lot of personality.
He is, and he's also very genuine. I
Mhm.
mean, I remember walking behind them on the way back to their room after some sort of dinner they went to, and he's like, "That was really good chicken. Do you like the chicken tonight? It was really good." And she's like, "Yeah, that was good chicken." I thought, okay, this is the president of the United States talking about their chicken dinner. But they were genuinely very kind and kind people, kind to the Secret Service agents. I was at the ranch in Waco one night working a midnight shift. Fortunately, I did have on cowboy boots, which I wear all the time. I'm wearing now, and I'm walking from one post to another, and I brushed up against something, and I was like, I mean, it's midnight. It's pitch black. It's in Waco. I mean, there's nothing. You can see nothing, right?
Right.
So I'm like, what was that? And I turn around and I take out my flashlight and I go back. It was a freaking rattlesnake
Whoa.
coiled up, and I like woke it, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So I got away from that really fast because I thought that it was huge. And I know my snakes because I'm from Tennessee. I've shot plenty of them at my grandmother's house. But like, holy moly. So I'm just on the radio. Obviously, I can't shoot the snake. It's the middle of the night. So I'm on the
Probably would have gotten in
radio.
trouble if you did.
Exactly, I think.
Yeah.
And I'm like calling it, just saying, just be aware there's a giant snake in between posts, whatever it was, and whatever it was, so that people could know. But man, that scared the stew out of me. And I was also, you remember when Dick Cheney shot the guy accident?
Yeah.
Okay.
How do you forget?
So yeah, I was actually on that trip too. And I have a child named Cheney, spelled exactly the same way because he's named after Dick Cheney. So I love the man. It was a horrible, horrible accident to have happened. Accidental discharges are always accidents, right? They're
Right.
not called on purposes. So that was a unique experience. But man, you talk about, you could just see the absolute heartbreak,
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really difficult.
Yeah.
How long did you serve in the Secret Service then?
So from 2001 to 2006,
Okay.
all of my time was spent in the LA field office, and traveled around. I actually had been to Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Have you ever heard of that place?
I have, yeah. I'm a
Well,
big ski nut, so
okay.
it's on the list.
Okay, you're gonna love it. I had been there in the early '90s with a girlfriend, and I knew it's just a fascinating place. And it just so happens the Vice President, Dick Cheney, has a residence there, and so I would volunteer every chance I got to go to Jackson because it's just amazingly beautiful. And I love to ski and hike and fly fish and raft and all the fun stuff that you can do, ride horses, obviously. Um, but actually also met my husband there.
Oh, awesome.
He was a bouncer at the Cowboy Bar. No joke. My mom said that, what if he's an axe murderer? I'm like, Mom, I have a gun. Like, he's not an axe murderer. he had taken off work and moved out there to be a ski bum and to enjoy his life for a year because he was working really hard. And so when I met him, he literally was a bouncer, and I actually was posted up at the hospital because Cheney has heart issues, so we always had an agent at the hospital, and which is a sweet gig, by the way. I mean, I just sit in a room and read and do puzzles and
No,
wait, make
not too
sure
bad.
he's not coming in, like.
Right.
But that man, he would get up, he has to get a CIA briefing 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, goes on the river, does not come back until 7 in the evening. I mean, he has stamina like you have never seen, and that's like on a vacation day, but that's what he does
Wow.
for his vacation. So, he's an amazing individual for sure. It's his whole family to me. I really appreciate them. But, um, so I was working at the hospital. He thought I was a doctor, like, a heart doctor or something. No, that's what the military does. Like, but anyway, so we met on Cache Street, Cache Street, in there in Jackson, while I was working for Dick Cheney. So our sons are named Cache and Cheney.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
That's a cool story.
Yeah. So
Awesome. And how old are your kids now?
11 and 12.
Right on.
So my 12-year-old's taller than me. Wears like a 10 and a half shoe. I'm like, you're going to be a giant. So make mama money somehow.
Yeah, there you go. So what happened after Secret Service?
Yeah, I didn't want to go to the details. So actually at the time I separated from the service, I was a team leader in my squad. So basically everybody in the squad, the agents, we have to produce reports. And when we do arrest warrants, search warrants, we're going to court, or we have to report all of this stuff. And so I was reading everyone's reports and making sure they had the right legal things and the right charges and all that, and then giving them back, like kind of like a teacher would, and make these corrections. And then, so at the time I separated, I was doing that, and I was just about to go to the detail, which would mean I would relocate from the LA field office to DC. And I
Okay.
didn't particularly want to do that. I wanted to get married and have a family, and so that's what I did.
Awesome.
Yeah. And so the one thing that's great about, if your listeners are wondering what they're going to do with their lives, one thing that's great about what I do is it has a license connected to it. So much like real estate license or brokerage or whatever. So I had a license in 3 different states. This is my fourth, maybe fifth, I can't remember now, to practice counseling. So when I went to work for the federal government, they would not let me maintain my credentialing, right? So
Okay.
that was considered a conflict, and you don't want to be distracted doing your other, just continuing ed credits and all that kind of stuff.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So I resigned my license, but I did it in a way that meant that I could reinstate my license as long as I could, collect all of the continuing ed requirements and any testing or anything that they had mandated in between. So that's what I did. I essentially, when I came here, I got my license in the state of California, and then I got a PhD, and just because I just wanted to, and it's in clinical Christian counseling. So it's been really fun to be able to have that life experience, and I think that's really led me to where I am today as a candidate for the state assembly.
Yeah.
It's just a very unique background. Nobody in Sacramento has this background. And I always say I will take the same fight to Sacramento that I took to the streets of LA to the bad guys when I was in the Secret Service, because that's literally what you have to do these days in California, is fight for folks like me that are Republicans, that are on the right, that have the idea of less government, fewer taxes, more freedoms, more liberties. Parental rights are being taken away from us. We have so many things going on in California that is reflective of the last 30 years of Democratic leadership that is just failing us as citizens. So,
Yeah. Failing greatly.
it really is. So,
When you have an
it-
interesting perspective too, from the Secret Service side, of seeing these politicians and just kind of like what it takes behind the scenes,
you
right?
sure do.
Like that, like you were explaining about Dick Cheney and like his energy levels, and
Yeah.
all the presidents. You name any of them, right, or vice presidents. But I mean, the level of energy and like the hours of the day that they're like on. They're totally they're switched on all the time.
Yeah.
And so having, I think, that perspective is cool feather in your cap too.
Yeah, it really is because you do see, like I was alluding to earlier, you do see a bit of their personalities come through. I remember being on the John Kerry and Teresa Hines campaign trail, and I'm just so glad they never got to be president. I mean,
Me
I'm
too.
really thankful for that because that was kind of a disaster. I remember seeing, like I said, the Hollywood elitists, the Clintons, they would stay at this person's house, and I cannot remember because again, it's an actor. I want to say Marlon Brando, obviously he's dead, but whoever's, it was like his house. I mean, there was Renoirs, Monets hanging in this place, um, and I can remember seeing, she drove up in her SUV and he wasn't at the door, Mrs. Clinton, and the president was not at the door to greet her. And she wouldn't get out of the car until he came. And
Whoa.
then when he came, she walked right past him. I was like, what,
What was the purpose of that?
what is happening right now? There's no love in those. There's no love there. Like there's just no, I would never ever want to be in that type of relationship.
Yeah, I think I mean, you could see that on TV even when they were in office. That
Yeah.
yeah, that was a political
It's
arrangement at
it,
that
at
point.
best,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I don't know. Unique perspective, I think it helps, particularly when we're facing issues in San Diego County about homelessness, mental health issues, housing affordability. I have a very unique background to address that. And, we have this COVID thing going on now. And, my opponent's first tweet since January was literally about her fish hatcheries bill. And I'm appalled. I'm thinking to myself, okay, people are abused, neglected, domestic violence is on the rise, suicide rates, ideation is on the rise. People are out of work, unemployed, losing jobs, losing homes, having to deal with a global pandemic, and your focus is on fish hatcheries. Seems a little out of touch to me.
Yeah. Well, so goes it with most of our elected officials in
Yeah.
the state, right? Just completely out of touch with what is really the heart of the matter. So, um, in your campaign, so I mean, I think there's a lot of reasons to be motivated to run for office, if you're a conservative in this state, right? Just seeing the degradation that's happened over the last 30 years. But what really like
So true.
sparked you to throw your hat in the ring and say, I'm going to give this a shot and go after it?
Um, you know what? When I always say you can mess with me, I'm a big girl, I can take it. I signed up to take bullets for presidents. I'm pretty sure I can take shots fired from a political opponent. Um, but when you start messing with my kids, you're really rattling the cage. And that sentiment resonates with everybody else that I've talked to that's a parent, not just a mom, but a parent. Because we have what's happening in California is they're taking our parental rights away from us. They're trying to say the government can raise our children better than parents. And that's just not a fact. In fact, we
Sure.
know what government does for us. Hey, what did Ronald Reagan say? I'm from the government. I'm here to help. You better like run the other way, right?
Right.
Um, because we know they don't handle things well, and really they're meddling into our parental rights, our property rights. I don't know if you guys are aware of some of the assembly bills that are coming out. They say you probably are because of your business, but
Yeah.
AB 1471, I think it was the rental property. You can only rent your property out for 30 days of a calendar year. My opponent authored that legislation. It was so poorly received that it's started at the state level. It dwindled down to Encinitas, and then she pulled it the day before they were supposed to vote on it because it was a horribly ill-conceived idea. But that's just another example of taking our property rights away from us. These ADUs that they want us to build to accommodate homeless people. These are ideas coming out of Sacramento. Um, I'm not willing to let my property go to a homeless person if I don't want to invite that person into my home, right?
Right.
This is these are just a big over, and then taxes, 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 housing affordability because of all of the impact fees the developers have to pay, um, and simply this is the 100th year of the suffragette movement. Okay, the 100th year where the 19th got ratified, where women could vote, and guess what day it happened on 100 years ago? My freaking birthday! Yay! I'm so excited. My opponent, on the other hand, wants to legislate that women should be on all boards. You should have a woman on all different boards. And, that is such an insult, in my opinion. I don't care if I'm a female. should not be about your gender. It should be about, I don't know, your qualifications.
Oh yeah, what you bring to the table. Yeah.
um, so literally, these are things that she's, authoring, and they're passing because we have a supermajority of Democrats in Sacramento. We just have to change that. This seat, I love this. Math is in my favor, right? Math does not lie, and so this is a very vulnerable seat. It's being targeted as a vulnerable seat. She's a freshman incumbent. It has historically been a Republican seat. We didn't have a Republican on the ballot in 2018. So you're definitely not
Surprising
going
that there wasn't even somebody there to vote for. Yeah.
Well, that's because there was a big scandal, and the Democrats essentially set up the Republican candidate, and everything that they accused him of was proven false in court, and the person went to jail that actually made the accusations. But this is how dirty politics is. And so when you ask me what I'm doing, why I want to throw my hat into the ring, it's not because you feel like you're naked on a street corner, because that's literally like what you feel like. But you have to be able to protect yourself. They will. The saying is, I will stop telling the truth about you when you stop lying about me. I mean, that's literally kind of where we are in politics, at least.
It's so divisive.
It's so extraordinarily divisive. And we have so much more in common than we don't have in common, right? I worked with Democrats in my city of Carlsbad to pass, it's called the Integrated Pest Management Plan, but it's basically non-toxic Carlsbad, where we don't use glyphosate in the entire city of Carlsbad now, and that's Roundup. We use an organic alternative, and I worked diligently with some Democrats and one other Republican, and that's not the threat to me. The city council incidentally passed that 5-0, and it actually had no increase in taxes to the people of Carlsbad. So we were really proud of that accomplishment. But working with Democrats is not really a challenge for me. It's a socialist or a Marxist path in California that prevents me from saying that this is a great idea. Like this is not where we want to go. It's not where we need to go. Pretty soon they're literally going to be taxing the air we breathe.
Yeah.
That's no joke. So it's like we have to do something, because I'm not going to put my head in the sand, even though it would be so easy to do, just to go to the beach with my son this afternoon and not have to sit on the phone and make 100 phone calls for fundraising. But to not put my head in the sand and wake up in 10 years and say, where did all my rights go? What happened to my freedom and my personal liberty? And, I would have to leave the state, and I'd have no intention of doing that.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, the good people are leaving, as you probably well know.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I mean, people are running out of here in droves.
Yeah.
You
They
see
can't
it all over the
afford
place.
it. I mean, they cannot afford it. And now we have a governor who's, if his hair is out of whack in the morning, he changes his mind about stuff. I mean, I don't know. They dream up numbers like this 14 days or 5% of this or 30 of that. This AB5, the gig economy killing bill that they passed, my opponent supported. Freelance writers could sit at home during COVID and write and earn a living for themselves, and they are prevented by law from doing that in the state of California. And you know what else? The EDD, the Economic Development Department, is doing audits on people now that are 1099 employees. But who did they hire to do the audits? They had to go outside of California. It would have been breaking their own law. What a slap in the face to everybody that is in the gig economy. This is what your state is doing to you. We can do better, and we deserve better. And, I could talk about this hours on end, because it's just how passionate I am about it. I don't see the same fire in the belly in my opponent. So it's going to be interesting. She won't even debate me. Like, I can't even get her on a Zoom call. Like, come on.
Well, they won't debate. It's probably because they know they can't fight.
Yeah. Well, I don't. The people deserve to hear. The people
they do.
deserve that.
I mean, they really should be able to see and hear that contrast, saying
Yeah.
it with our upcoming presidential election, which
Yeah.
debates may not happen now from what you see, but it's just crazy. What veteran issues are you seeing
I'm so glad you
that
asked
are
me that
facing
question.
California right now?
I'm so glad you asked me that question, because one of the ways that I think that we can actually work with the Democrats is bringing it as a veteran issue. So lots of veterans in California in particular, when they retire, they tend to move out of the state. And so I want to look, and I'm creating a cabinet, if you will, of people that are knowledgeable about this that can help me create this legislation. Basically, a lesser tax impact to the veterans, especially ones that are retired, because it will retain their residency in California. I mean, they're moving because they go farther. Their dollar goes farther in Tennessee or Idaho or whatever,
Yeah, or Arizona. Yeah.
Arizona. So I think that would be a really good. So I say build bridges, not walls, and I think that would be a really good way to build a bridge. And with Democrats, and I think I could get bipartisan support with that, because the question I get often is, "What are you going to do? It's a super majority." Well, first of all, get me elected,
Yeah.
and let's break that up, because there are three really really targeted races that we think we're going to be successful in the assembly. So I think that would be the place I would start, and then surround myself with folks that are veterans that can help me understand what their needs are. And it's just oppressive and repulsive to me that we are giving money by way of earned income tax credits to illegals' children's. We're giving money to illegals, and we are not taking care of our own veterans. So,
Yeah, I see the same issue and frustration. I mean, if we're going to be giving money to anybody, give it
right,
to the people that rose their right hand and
right,
said, "I'll die for you."
yeah,
That's who we should be taking care of the most.
amen.
And yeah, I see it quite a bit with the veteran community that I serve in the mortgage business, and you know, the benefit, the other perk or benefit,
Mhm.
if you can get something like that, voted on and through is, um, veteran home ownership has the um, lowest default rate of any other
Yeah,
home ownership, category across the nation. So,
yeah,
I mean, if you look at it from a macro level for the state of California, and obviously, the state and the country has its, ups and downs when it comes to economies and
sure.
things like that, and home values and foreclosures and, job losses and stuff. And COVID is not helping any of that situation. But um, when you look at that from a macro level, a lot of these veterans are educated, well employed. They have, if they did a full term in the military, they got a retirement, probably some disability pay. Like they're great citizens to keep in your
Sure.
state, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because not only are they supporting our biggest industry, which is
Right.
housing, which supports so many other industries, um, but they're great caretakers
Oh
of
yeah.
everything, right? And so, what better person to help and keep here,
Exactly.
than let them run off.
And I've my campaign and I have been at the Veterans Association in North County for every second Friday of the month. They distribute food, and it's a parade of cars, so that nobody gets out. We're all practicing all of the safety and COVID rules, but it is the funnest day of the month for me. I absolutely love going there, and it's also the most heartbreaking day of the month, because I'm thinking we serve so many over 1,000 families, and how what people don't know is that about 1 in 5, 1 in 7 North County residents is food insecure. And during this crisis, nothing is getting better for them, right?
Right.
People don't think about that kind of thing. So people don't think about the child that's abused. Teachers are mandated reporters. Abuse is not getting reported because the kids are not in school. I mean, it's a myriad of problems that we face. But I think, if I'm partnering with Vance already on a number of different things. This food distribution is just one, but I think we need to do better. Again, we we deserve better, and we need to do better.
Yeah.
People are accountable, and when they are accountable and when they feel like they're contributing members to society, we do better.
Totally. Yeah, 100% agree. Well, where can people get in touch with you if they want to, support your campaign or just read more, learn more about you and the issues and things that you support? Where can they reach you best?
Sure. Melanie4assembly.com is my website. It's FOR, not the number, and not FOUR, but Melanie4assembly.com. And you can email me, Melanie at Melanie4assembly.com. I'm always available to constituents. People actually kind of are shocked that I'm calling them back immediately after I receive an email. Because if I do receive an email and I want to reply to it, it often goes into spam. So I just pick up the phone and, hey, this is Melanie. I got your email. So yeah, please do reach out however you want to, because we got to take the seat back You can donate online. Those are always helpful too. I've got tons of props here that I brought. And this is examples of how the money gets spent, right? You've got to have all these pieces and parts to a campaign, as you know. And I have a great team. I have, I think, 45 volunteers that are just working nonstop right now. And we go out and knock on doors every Saturday. That's probably my second favorite thing to do is knock on doors. Vance being the first one, the food thing. But it's a good way to, talk with the voter, find out what's on their minds, make sure they're going to vote. 60% of this nation, this is my last point, 60% of this nation are evangelical Christians. Of those, 50% vote. Of those, only 20 are registered. Of those, only 25% go to the polls. So we've got to get people out to vote November 3rd.
Yeah. I mean, getting out to vote is super critical. And probably a whole nother topic of discussion we could chat about, which is the mail-in ballot thing and the ballot harvesting and all that just goofiness that's happening.
Voter rolls haven't been cleaned in California in 100 years. So yeah, let's go off the voter rolls. Let's do that. That seems like a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
No fraud there at all. Yeah.
Right. I know. It's just, it's an absolute mess. Well, we hope that you win.
Thank you.
And can get in there and help clean some stuff up, because the state of California desperately needs it.
It really does.
They keep voting for the wrong people, but we're going to help them vote for the right person here. That's for sure.
Yes, thank you.
So, Melanie, thank you so much for spending some time. I know the campaign work and the campaign season is intense, and it's mega hours. I worked on one before, and it's thankless work. So thank you for what you're doing and spending some time with us today to share your story.
I really appreciate it. I want to thank all of my volunteers, and this would not be happening without them, and they're really amazing folks. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Reach out to MelanieForAssembly.com and please support her. She can use all the help that you could give. And thanks so much for sharing your story.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for joining the Armed and Ready podcast today. I hope you got a lot out of this episode. It was super fun. Melanie was a great guest, talked about some cool stuff. For more information, if you'd like to get a hold of me, visit valoanguy.us, or if you'd like to support Melanie's campaign, it's MelanieForAssembly.com. Thanks so much for stopping by.